Testing, yo. I have my AC unit here in the background. If it's too loud, I probably won't use it in the future, but I thought I'd use it today. I guess big news in terms of markets. No big news, really. The market continued to sell off today. I don't see anything crazy about it. There are some fears. Of course, the media is going to play it up. This is what the media is saying. Credit crunch fears, Iran fears, Strait of Hormuz closure fears. So it's the same dialogue, really. Somehow it's, I don't know. But it's the same yet different somehow. We had a little bit of a sell-off, and like I said, some sectors of the market are already looking like they're in correction territory. So, and then the other big news was, I guess, Cesar Chavez. There's been a lot of statements. I guess every politician's putting out a statement now, and he did so much in terms of, at least the movement did so much for immigrant rights and things of that nature. So obviously I think a lot of Democratic politicians are speaking on it now, making sure to lend credence to the movement, but of course distancing themselves from the actions of Cesar Chavez, who, I mean, you could read up on it. He essentially wasn't the stand-up person that people thought he was, and many women are now saying that they were assaulted by him, and even much worse, and even underage women, so even underage girls who are now women. So bad for the legacy, but I think this just reallocates credit to where credit is due in terms of for that movement. Bravo to the women who decided to say something. I think initially it was like, well, we want to protect the movement, we want to protect this person that everybody kind of adores, but I think the truth is more important. And I think speaking that truth, I think, at least from what I understand, it helps people find closure and find a little bit of justice for what happened. And so the funny thing is, not funny, but how it often goes is one person will say something, then other women will feel more confident in saying, hey, I experienced the same thing. So in these women's minds, they thought it was just them. And that's how these abusers want their victims to feel. You're the only one, don't share or else you'll ruin everything. And they're even put under pressure by whoever is in the movement to not say anything. And so I'm glad these women did, because it's been revealed that there's been a lot of women that Cesar has done this to, and a lot of evidence. And great New York Times article. I encourage everybody to check that out when they have a chance, of what happened, and it's pretty damning. That's the best way to say it. So that's the other big news. Other news, I got a lot of people reaching out to be guests on my podcast, and I feel like it's some maybe listserv that they just, I mean, some of them are legit, but I'm not, I don't set this up to promote anything. I obviously don't make a whole lot off it, or nothing basically off it. I read something about Facebook trying to get influencers with 1 million followers on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube, and then they'll pay them like $3,000 a month for 1 million. And if you have, I think, 100,000, they'll pay you like $400. Of course, in addition to whatever you're making over there, to try to eventually recruit you to post to Facebook. So, but I was just like, 1 million, 100,000. What are we talking about here? So I definitely don't have that kind of reach, but I am getting interest in people wanting to join as guests. They seem real enough. They're coming from real email addresses and things of that nature. I would just say, one of them, I think part of it is to promote what they do as well. Some people are into crypto, and so I think they want to talk about perhaps that. Some other people are into, actually, some super right-wing politics. People reached out to me, and I don't know if that'd be a good fit, to be quite honest. And one other person wanted, I think, to promote their product. So I'm not a product pusher. I don't do it myself. I think I mentioned that already. I try to keep this as plain vanilla in terms of the genuine and authentic as possible to me. And I'm never trying to sell people on things and force people into things. It's all about long-term investing profitably, and protecting your capital. That's what it's about ultimately. Other news, looks like the SEC is looking to get rid of quarterly reporting and change it to optional bi-yearly reporting, which is just twice a year. And I think some people are up in arms about that. Obviously, as investors, you do want to see quarterly reports, but if you're a long-term investor, to be quite honest, quarterly reporting shouldn't be that important, so it's not all wrong. But my sense and it's to open up public markets to more companies, make it more appealing to more companies. My sense is the bigger companies that continue to report quarterly, and just because they have the resources to do it, and then some may choose to, especially if they're smaller, to report less. That's the other news. I don't have a problem with that. I did talk about margin yesterday. There's also particular products and strategies that are essentially leveraged products, and take on maybe just as much risk as margin. And these products are typically options because you pay a small premium to control a large block of shares, for example. And you can, as with any product, you can speculate with that and gamble essentially with, there's all types of products, but I don't know what they call it, the forecasting, or I don't even know what they call it, but it just seems like you can bet on anything nowadays. But there's derivatives markets, obviously options, puts, calls. You can, they're called naked puts and calls, where there's nothing, the asset is not underneath. And that tends to be especially risky because it's not covered by anything. But covered calls, let's say you have a stock that you think, hey, if it goes up this amount, I'll be satisfied with selling. So you write a covered call to sell at a certain price you're satisfied with. If it stays underneath, you won't be satisfied. You'll keep it, and you also get a premium for that time that you write a covered call. And so some people use that, but they use that knowing full well that it could be called, and they'd be okay with that level of profit once it's called. I tend to not like those because it goes back to an adage for investors to let your winners run and cut your losers fast. And people tend to do the opposite. They tend to hold on for losers way too long, and then they tend to sell too soon sometimes when winners start running. Because when you buy a stock, many times it doesn't go up right away. It's been going down. Let's just say you see value, you buy it, it goes down a little more. It pops up, and you're just so happy to see it pop up. And you're like, wow, it's right back where I bought it. Now I'm going to sell it. And then it goes on that run that you thought it would. So it's a common mistake. But yeah, I was going back to the Cesar Chavez. It's such big news, at least for socially. It's this pattern of obviously powerful men using their affinity to the group and their movement to take advantage of, in this case, women and even younger women, it was spurred because and somewhere, I think in Bakersfield, they're going to rename a road after Cesar Chavez, which was close to one of the victims' homes. And so she's like, no more, I'm going to have to say something. And I would say she's probably glad she did at this point, because she wasn't the only one. Many more kind of came forward and began to speak on their experiences with this particular individual as well. But there were a lot of people involved in the movement, so I think we should begin to reallocate and recredit people who deserve it. But at the same time, I am concerned that this stayed quiet for that long. I mean, there were books written on it and other things like that, and it just never was formally investigated, and it was kind of kept hush-hush. And I actually think that hurts the movement for it to have waited this long. And I mean, I think if it happened earlier, you're able to move forward. But actually, when things like that get revealed so late in a movement, I don't question. It's just more like, why did so many, who was involved that kept it on the low for so long? That's concerning. That's concerning. But yeah, I mean, but people in the movement were basically saying, hey, keep quiet. You're going to ruin things, and it's just, yeah, you begin to look at that. Not the movement itself, but it's just the people involved, and who do you reallocate the credit to? Who deserves the most credit? Or maybe this just becomes a success story for the women who came forward and were brave enough to finally say something and speak on their behalf. One of them's 90-something. They were going to take it to their grave, and I'm glad that she was able to get the opportunity. I think with the push of other women saying something, she was able to finally share her story, it seems like. So, I mean, yeah, he that whole movement, it did a lot for immigrants' rights, obviously. I have to look it up, but I know it's done a whole lot for rights, for workers, for farm workers, treating people right. Because sometimes a lot of those movements, for example, like Martin Luther King's movement, helped Asian people and a lot of minorities and women as well, because it began to get codified in the law that everyone should have rights, everyone should have inalienable rights and things of that nature. So everybody benefited from certain people's efforts, like Martin Luther King Jr. A lot was accorded to Cesar Chavez, and I think in Sacramento here we have parks named after him, which I think the mayor is going to rethink. but a lot was accorded to him. We just need to, like I said, reallocate it. It's probably going to take some time to find the right people. He was the most visible, but movement's still there, the rights are still there, but maybe there's nobody to recognize at all. Maybe this is more of a lesson for powerful men. This continues to happen. It continue to be a theme and throughout history and probably going forward, but it didn't have to be that way. I mean, even after death, your legacy can be tarnished. Okay, so anybody who thinks they're hiding stuff for that long and lurid, abusive detail like what's happening here, and that New York Times article just was very graphic in terms of how emotionally abusive Mr. Chavez could be, and physically as well. So, but you feel for the women involved, and I think it becomes maybe let's move the attention to who really won. I think the women speaking on behalf of themselves and other women who were able to find some peace and solace and finally sharing their stories, maybe they become the real winners, and we begin to look at the movement like that, and that's fine with me. You know, so other than that, can't think of much. I'm just trying to go quick hits, what sort of off the top of my mind. But yeah, a quick drawdown. And then yesterday I didn't really post because, long story short, I couldn't get my app working because I'm changing up my setup and stuff like that to try to work only on my laptop to rest my eyes and sit on a more comfortable chair. And it running on batteries was uploading all weird. And so, long story short, I was having technical difficulties. And so, but also, and I was on Monday though, but on Tuesday it's okay to take a rest. You know, I think it's okay. I needed a rest, and I took one. And you know, sometimes you need that. So other than that, baseball. I continue to get comments. Thank you for my friends on Facebook getting on my TikTok and saying, I think one person said it's because Bam is a defender. You don't expect that from a defender. Half these people who didn't expect Bam to score 83, or are hating on Bam scoring 83, didn't expect him to score 50. I don't know what his last career high was. You know, so for him as a a defensive player to break Kobe's scoring record. Now keep in mind, Kobe has many other records besides a scoring record. You know, but Bam has this one. He went for this one, and it just seems kind of off. And it's just new. People tend to hate on new things. But like I said, talk to Michael Beasley. Talk to Dwayne Wade. I mean, some of these guys really know that Bam is a dog. He's capable of this. Obviously, he showed it in any game. I mean, even if Dwayne didn't know, he proved it in an NBA game. It's a bad team, but I've seen the Wizards play. They still have NBA talent. They got Alex Sarr and all of them. These aren't scrubs. Alex Sarr is not a scrub. Some of those other guys may be scrubs. And then, I guess, WBC baseball. I was watching that, and it was exciting up to a certain point. It's just, Aaron Judge continues to struggle in big games. I hate to say it, but I don't think he hit one ball. So they sat Big Dumper again, and it got exciting because the game was tied late in the game, and then it got a little late, so I couldn't watch the whole thing. But I saw the Venezuela get up by 1, and I was like, it was tough enough to get 2. But that home run was very exciting. The game previous to that was very exciting. I actually don't even the WBC. I feel like it should be an Olympic thing, but anyhow, yeah, maybe it's. I guess I don't really know what it is. They award gold, silver. It's kind of like its own thing outside of the Olympics. So just an international competition that happens in it, every now and then. Yeah, other than that, I think, just staying smart. I talked about expenses and paying, credit cards and debt and managing expenses. And that's the whole reason why I'm not a big fan of like personal finance, is because I feel like part of it is like babysitting people. You're spending too much. Susie or Bob, you shouldn't be spending that much. You're not gonna hit your goals. And then half the time they're like, oh well, and then I'll show them in my whole software, you're gonna run short of your goals. And it's like, well, this is what we've been spending, and there has been a study on it that people think they're gonna spend less, but end up spending just as much. So just keep this in mind when you're calculating on your own, because I'm not going to do it for you. I already went through the rule of 72. But people tend to spend as much as they did before because now they have more free time and they can enjoy the things they couldn't before. Excuse me. They can now enjoy the things they could not before. They have the time to. So they're able to spend more, as much as they did before. So just keep that in mind when you're doing your, I guess, pro forma analysis in terms of what you need for the future, what you need to save for the future. I'd research how much you might be getting from Social Security, try to estimate what your housing payments are. Those are some of the more important things. Obviously, basic everyday needs, and then every now and then leisure. How do you want to live, and how much assets do you need to do it? I would say in terms of spending, everybody's is different based on their asset size, obviously. But I would say, like even for pension plans, if you're estimating right now anything more than 7% long-term returns from, it might be a little aggressive. I'm talking about right now. So if you're thinking, hey, I'm going to get 15-20% returns, it's going to be tough. Most portfolios have, especially in the financial management software, they have bonds in it, and so they usually assume a little bit less in returns. And so basically, whatever you get, you end up with your assets. If you're spending, if you're spending, I would say more than 8% of your assets in the future, you're probably going to be depleting some of it every year. But if you're depleting at 1% every year, it's not going to be a huge deal. So that's how you got to kind of think of it. Yes, you overdraw what the projected returns are, sure. But if you overdraw it by too much, your assets are going to last you to the end of your life. And so what are you doing now, or what can you do now? Do you think your house is going to be paid off? Even then, you got to keep in mind property taxes and things like that. Some are even saving for a house, and so everybody's situation is different, and it's different for every person. But you feel like such a bad guy saying, hey, you're spending too much, and you feel like a party pooper. I actually don't mind it. I actually don't mind it if that's what clients need. But generally speaking, I think my messaging is you should only be investing long-term funds for the long run. And if you invest it, you should be able to forget about it for a few years, 3 to 5 years, because you just don't know what'll happen in the short run, and that's what you're seeing right now. So don't be scared. Stick to your investment plans, folks. And like I said, just keep contributing and on your regular schedule, and especially if it's the same amount. If it's the same amount you're contributing on a regular basis, no matter if the market's up or down, you automatically buy more when the market's down. You'll automatically buy less when the market is up. So I think it's worth being repeated, because I don't think people understand why I should continue to invest even though the market's down. Or up, right? Isn't it, if the market goes up, I should invest more? Some people do that, right? And it's like, no. I mean, you might be buying when it's too high. So it's to protect you from your own instincts, that natural, I guess, instincts that can hurt you. All right, y'all. Happy investing, and happy Wednesday. I even forgot what day it was. It is, I guess, Wednesday, March 18th, 2026. All right, y'all.